this is Chris the Nightmare Ariola, and you're watching Mission Boxing Today on YouTube.
Man, there's a lot going on in boxing, man. But let's talk about the cruiserweight division, man. This guy, Alexander Usyk, you brought up an interesting topic that I want to record, and this style matchup between him and possibly fighting a Joseph Parker. But before you even go there, why don't you break down Alexander Usyk's background to make you think that he can give Parker the works?
Well, he's an Olympic gold medalist. That's one. That has to be taken into account. His performance on the World Series of Boxing when he fought the other super heavyweights. So he's fighting guys 250 pounds, like Junior Fa, for example, who's 6'6", 260 pounds. I mean, he went and just dominated those guys. Another thing is Junior Fa, he's a 9-0 New Zealand prospect. When I talked to Junior and I asked him who's the best fighter you've been in the ring with. Now, remember, he fought Joseph Parker 4 times in the amateurs and even derailed him from getting to the Olympics. So I asked him who's the best fighter you've been in the ring with. He said Usyk by far. So, that goes a long way. James Ali Bashir, I've heard him say that they had to close the doors when Usyk and Klitschko were sparring. Now, that's rumor and hearsay, but I don't think Bashir will lie about the shit. You know what I mean? And I heard Usyk, pretty much gets the best of Vladimir. The feet, the hand speed, the southpaw stance, always give orthodox fighters trouble for the most part. It seems as if he has a good chin. He took some good shots from Glowacki. Machuno, who some people didn't give too much credit to, but I knew Machuno was a solid fighter. I've seen him fight on NBC Sports before. I know he's a compact, strong guy that got has a little bit of pop. I know he got knocked out by Makabu, but that was an entertaining back and forth fight. And Usyk went in there and just went third gear on him, man, and just, dominated him. But I think, Usyk, he has the skills and ability to give heavyweights problems, especially the right size heavyweight, like a Povetkin. I know he's juiced up, but like a Povetkin, a Parker, even a Lucas Brown, somebody like that, I think Usyk will give problems to.
Now, you mentioned something a moment ago that makes me think something about him now. You know what makes a fighter special is somebody who has more than one dimension about them and they got gears to them. So do you think sometimes in some of his opposition, Usyk be just toying with his opponents before he gets them out, like he tries to read them, then he takes it to another gear?
Yeah, with the footwork, and to me, he's a lot better when you're trying to come after him. Like Machuno, he had to walk him down a little bit. Machuno's making him be the aggressor. So Usyk, he was trying to place shots. That's why he was pity-patting with some shots, as Roy Jones alluded to, pity-patting and then placing hard shots because he was forced to walk the guy down. He's trying to open up your guard by just pity-patting, make you react to the pity-pat, and then he'll start unloading combinations. Then once, Machuno was just dead meat in there, then he just started busting him up. But when Machuno did try to come forward, he was landing some good jabs, snapping Usyk's heads back. But for the most part, that's when Usyk is at his best, in my opinion, when he can counterpunch you. And he can do both. You know what I mean? But I think he's at his best when he fights out of the counterpunching position. And he has good footwork, man. So, he can move all around that ring. He has a great set of legs, man. That's hard for big guys to deal with.
So let's get into it. Who do you break down the matchup that you foresee if Usyk got in the ring with Joseph Parker, the WBO champion?
I think that'll be an interesting fight. Joseph Parker showed in his last fight with Ruiz, especially the Ruiz fight, that he has a good jab. And my impression was I thought Parker had just more of a strong thudding jab, but he showed me in that Ruiz fight that he can flick the jab out and make you react in certain ways so he can land that right hand behind it in different combinations. And he was moving, although he was circling to his left like 90% of the fight. He was circling right into Ruiz's right hand, which was weird to me. It's like this dude circling the same way the whole fight. But against Usyk, Parker would be the aggressor. And Parker does a lot better against guys around his size and height. So if Usyk can't stand up to the power, then of course I think Parker can get him out of there. But if Parker's forced to try to chase him around the ring, I can see Usyk squeaking out a decision against Joseph Parker.
Interesting point of view, and you really made me look into this. I've seen a few Usyk fights. You asked me about what I think about Usyk before, and the guy got some skills. Now, is he special to me? No, I think the guy who got some good fundamentals and the right size and the right pop and the right foot movement to cut off the ring and good head movement could easily hurt this guy or give him some problems. I think Steve Cunningham could give Usyk some work, but do I see Cunningham beating him? Possibly not, but Cunningham could give him that work because he's a Brazilian fighter. But somebody in the heavyweight division, I think he could dominate guys like George Arias, who's a small heavyweight. But Arias got some good skills about him, but he's not active like that. I think a Carlos Takam fight would be good with him and Usyk. That'll be a back and forth, fast paced fight. I think stamina would be an issue for Takam, where I think Usyk could outpoint him. You got a good point. And then didn't you say he dominated the super heavyweight division in the World Series of Boxing for a moment?
Yeah, he dominated that whole season, man. Like, and he fought at super heavyweight, so he wasn't fighting at heavyweight, slash it's the cruiserweight division and the amateurs, but he fought all the super heavyweights. He dominated them. And then another thing about the Machuno victory, a lot of people are just like, okay, he beat some guy named Machuno, but if you look at Machuno's wins in the cruiserweight division, he got some decent wins himself, man. He beat Darugula. Machuno even beat Eddie Chambers, that people are just kind of forgetting about. 2013 version of Chambers, but still he got the victory over him. Usyk's a bad dude, man, and you look at their reach. I believe Usyk has a longer reach than Joseph Parker by a few inches. So, to me, who can establish their jab? How will Parker do with that southpaw stance? I know he went against who did he fight against? Jason Bergman, but we can agree that Usyk or Jason Bergman is no Alexander Usyk. You know what I mean?
I think Parker would have to be a good counterpuncher for that fight. Make Usyk come to him and take away his height, and then just counter him with them openings to get rid of him. I mean, that's his best chance of winning. If you try to box Usyk, Usyk is gonna make him look like a fool in that ring. To be quite honest with you, and I'm a big Joseph Parker fan. It's just that I gotta be honest, man. Stylistically, Usyk could pose some problems. I don't think he's that special, but against a real one, somebody with some size, some pop, and some boxing skills, like I don't think he could beat a guy like a Tyson Fury, even though Tyson Fury is a drug addict right now. I don't think, even at this age, he could beat Vladimir, because Vladimir eventually won't respect his power and hurt him. I don't even think he could beat Anthony Joshua at this point in time, but I would like to see him against guys who would keep coming at him, like a Derek Chisora, but I think Chisora would lose. Dillian White, that would be an interesting matchup. Edmund Turper, if he can get himself right and not fail another drug test, I would like to see that. But here's another matchup I would like to ask you about. And we're back, folks. Deal Town, Part 2. Mr. Boxing Today. Alexander Usyk. Who can Usyk beat, and who will he get his butt whooping against in the heavyweight division right now? Skill-wise, size-wise, whatever. So, Mr. Boxing Today 2, I got a question for you. Southpaw versus Southpaw, who will win? The Boogeyman, a.k.a. King Kong, Luis Ortiz, or Alexander Usyk? The floor is yours.
Well, first let me say, I first made my first video about Usyk early 2015, talking about him. So this way before the HBO hype and all this other stuff. But to get to the question, though, I would favor Luis Ortiz in this one. But again, I mean, it's kind of tough looking at it, because when you look at Luis Ortiz, what has he had trouble with in his last few fights? He's won the fights, dominated them, but movement, right? Malik Scott's movement. Whether you want to say he was running scared for his life, fair enough. His feet were moving, his head was moving. It was hard for Ortiz to hit. Movement. Those are the same type of movements that Usyk can do. We can argue that Usyk's legs are better at this stage than Malik Scott's. Look at the Dave Allen fight. I know Luis Ortiz dominated it, but what was Dave Allen doing at the very least? He was standing flat-footed, but he was trying to move his head, get out of the way. He was getting out of the way of a lot of the shots. Then he started to get wore down because he's not in the greatest shape. So Usyk has that on his side, and that has showed in fights to give Luis Ortiz trouble is just movement. Then you look at his hand speed, his combination punching, and trying to land to actually score and hurt you. I think Usyk does a better job than Malik Scott does, and a better job than David Allen does. So I don't see this being no first-round knockout because he's a heavyweight and he's a cruiserweight. No, movement. The dude can move just as well, if not better, than Malik Scott. That's one thing I do give Malik Scott credit for, man. The dude can move his ass off. Offensively, not really, but defensively, he's one of the best defensive fighters in the heavyweight division, in my opinion, Malik Scott. And I think that Usyk can duplicate some of that shit. On top of, I think he's a better offensive fighter, and I think his footwork coming forward and turning and pivoting is on a different level, man. I really think he has a great set of legs, probably the best set of legs in the cruiserweight division, in my opinion.
I see a brutal knockout in this fight. I think whenever you
How long do you think the fight will go?
6 or 7 to 9 rounds. Whenever the distance is mid-range, Ortiz is going to get off. I know Usyk got the hand speed, but Ortiz got hand speed too. Ortiz could measure that distance and time him, and eventually, I think an uppercut is going to be vicious by Ortiz with a catch counter, and I think that's going to be murder she wrote. Or Usyk take any left hand from that guy unexpectedly. Ortiz is a calculating precision puncher, and if that guy could figure out your range and your timing, he knows how to hurt you. Now, you're right. When he's on his front foot and he's not exchanging against you or you coming to him where he could counter you, he looks vulnerable, especially against some movement. But if Usyk ever gets brave against this guy and this guy times this guy, it's going to be a knockout. Yeah, you could say Usyk was winning the fight, but Ortiz, man, can't ignore his power, nor can you ignore his speed. And plus, Ortiz could fight on his back foot, too, so he can get some looks on Usyk. So,
would you agree? Okay, but would you agree that Luis Ortiz, he has hand speed, but Luis Ortiz sometimes he gets too overwhelmed with trying to place hard shots, like all the time, to where he'll wait for perfect counters sometimes, for like the perfect shot. To me, that's what he was doing with Malik Scott. I know Malik was moving, but Malik's movement was making Ortiz keep his hands up, just keep his hands in the shelf, you know what I mean, on the shelf, because he wasn't throwing them. He was waiting for the perfect shot to land. And I think he can get caught up and lose rounds by doing that. Now, when I say lose rounds, I don't mean getting his ass whooped, but just being outpointed, because while he's looking for that one big shot, Usyk is letting his hands go, landing, scoring, things of that nature. Do you think that's a possibility?
Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of saying the same thing you're saying, except I just think Usyk would get a little too aggressive because he fights more like a small guy style than he does a big man style. And I think as soon as he lunges in a little bit more, Ortiz is going to pick up on that. Ortiz is going to set up some feints or some setup shot or counter shoot him. And it's going to be a brutal knockout, man. I don't think it's going to take Ortiz coming to Usyk to set up the knockout. I think it's going to be Usyk getting extra aggressive, thinking he see an opening. Ortiz comes up with a shot underneath and gets rid of him. It's going to be one of those most brutal knockouts you'll ever see. I just see it that way.
I definitely favor Ortiz, though. Don't get me wrong, but I think Usyk, I can see this fight going to decision. I can easily, just like I was telling people, I can see Malik Scott lasting a lot longer than what everybody was saying. It was going to end in 1 round, 2 rounds, and all this shit. I knew it was going to go way longer than that. Movement gives people trouble. I don't give a fuck if you can punch through a brick wall. If it's not there to be hit, you're going to have trouble hitting it. You know what I mean? So,
but let me ask you a question. Let me ask you a question. Does Usyk have the best head movement you've seen for the heavyweights?
See, it's not so much about head movement with him. His defense is his legs. Some guys, their best defensive weapon is head movement. His is his legs. So he's not going to be in front of you to hit. You know what I mean?
Now,
Yes, he moves his head, but it ain't to me. His legs is his best defensive maneuver is using his legs.
may I ask you a question? Since we brought up that Parker fight with Ortiz, you said Usyk had the length advantage against Parker.
Mm-hmm.
Ortiz got long arms himself. Would Usyk have the length advantage over Ortiz?
I think, if I'm not mistaken, you probably can check, but Ortiz has an 84-inch reach last time I checked.
Yeah.
And I know Usyk has 78.
Parker has like a 77, 76-inch reach.
Yeah, I think Usyk got 78, I think. But with Ortiz, his jab is beautiful. Man, I know in his last fight, a lot of people were saying he wasn't using his jab effectively against David Allen. He was pawing with it and probing with it. And I keep telling people, man, every time you throw your jab, it doesn't have to be this straight, hard, dart. It's not going to be like that all the time. You use your jab accordingly. Sometimes you just throwing a pity pat to make him react to that because okay, when I throw this pity pat, the guy raises his elbow and I can land a nice body shot right there. You know what I mean?
Like,
sometimes when you're throwing that hard darting jab, you're trying to land it to score it. Sometimes you're stuffing in hard with it to hurt the guy. You can throw different variations of a jab. It's not like your jab has to look one way every time against every opponent. It doesn't work like that. So Ortiz, he can trick you, man. Like, that dude's really tricky. He can walk you into traps. I think he's, with the experience, I think he's a little bit more smarter than Usyk, a little bit more calculating, and I think he'll time and play some hard body shots. I think he'll wear Usyk out, though.